You know, when you do one of those podcasts and you're like, this is gonna be one of the most popular shows because it is the most applicable, problem solving, understanding, implementable episode ever. I literally just had one of my dear friends, Cosimo, on the show, and he is a brain expert at a level I can't even explain. And he broke down things I've only ever seen him teach privately on the cognitive learning styles, on processing, on memorization, and basically how to communicate to every single person. And he even told the story how he took a company by just using the things he took on these shows and their close rate from like 30% to 90%, how he memorized like 500 names in 5 minutes. But he broke this down to a point where I have 3 pages of notes and I'm going to re-listen to it. And I am so excited because this is like the keys to the kingdom: how to communicate, how to make people feel heard, how to know the different communication styles of your team, how to get better products and processes out of them, how to close more sales, how to make all of your content, how to use these in your content to get more people to respond and click through. And he's one of the most incredible entrepreneurs in the world. This episode is mind-blowing. And I know you don't hear me say that often. I'm going to make this the #1 episode because I'm going to listen to this literally 5 times. And I'm starting to apply more of these things, changing how I learn and understanding how to be a better communicator, because this just changed the game for me. And so I can't give it any more justice than that. And so without further ado, I would get a pen and paper ready. I would recommend listening to this one a few times, and your mind is about to be blown. So let's get into the show. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Mind of George Show. And today I have my Italian brother from another mother, a man who both scares me and impresses me at the same time, and has broken my brain for all the right reasons and given me the most enjoyable late night conversations. And I swear I could spend every minute with this man, and I'm extremely jealous because he just got back from Italy as well. And I want to go eat all the food and all the family dinners he told me about. But I say this with the most humility ever. He might say the same thing, but I literally was just obsessed with hearing him speak. I watched him present at our buddy Greg Kimball's event, and I thought I understood the brain. I thought I knew a few things. And he's like, George, welcome to kindergarten because I have a PhD in this. And I was like, give me more. Give me more, give me more. And so I am humbled. I am honored. I am incredibly excited to have today's guest. And I mean, one of the most beautiful men, not only in business, in life, in relationship, in connection, in care. And so without further ado, Cosimo, welcome to the show.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, George, for this wonderful introduction. So I don't have a PhD in this, but for sure I know a lot about it. Yeah.
Not a real PhD. I meant like PhD of life. I also did graduate kindergarten, but when it comes to the brain and when it comes to feeling seen and understood, you take it to a level that I'm like, yeah. I'm just glad you're my friend and I can text you because I don't need to know anything anymore. I just have you on speed dial.
I love it, man. I love it. And thank you for this opportunity, guys. I love George. When we met, it was first saw, first love. So it was freaking amazing. And thank you for having me here. So let's start and diving into our brain because I really believe we need to have fun by doing this journey in our brain. So are you ready to start?
I'm right. I'm just gonna let you drive. Like, go ahead. Go ahead. This is what I love about Cosimo, by the way. Like, the moment you give him space, he's like, all right, so let's fix your brain. Let's help you feel understood. Let's teach you this. Let's teach you. So, bro, I am ready to go to school. Let's go.
Awesome. So I just want to tell you that they call me usually the get to the point guy because learning, it seems so long sometimes that we never get to the point of practicing and knowing the things. But really learning, it's all practice, all experiences, all experiential. So that's why I'm a get to the point guy. And now, I just want to give you a brief story about me. About 6 years ago, I did not speak English. And with my company, my partners were deciding who want to open America. I was really scared. I said, certamente è una bella opportunità, perché no? Mi piace parlare in inglese, gli americani sono così belli. I did not speak English. And man, I was really scared about that. And the first thing my brain thought was, oh, I'm dyslexic. I never learned in years of school English. And so now when I go there impacting people like I'm doing here in Italy, there is no way for me to do that. But then in the other hand, I said, Cosimo, yes, you're dyslexic. Yes, Cosimo, you never learned English in years of school. But now you have a method. And that's why you can learn things faster. And so I took their airplane. I still remember that I said, okay, this is my dream. This is my mission. I want to empower people with what they learn and with their brain. And so, with all the faith and love with what I do, I landed in the US and I learned 6,000 words in 2 weeks, plus the grammar rules, by using the techniques. After 5 weeks, I was teaching this course to 20, my first 20 people. It was phenomenal. And I'm not saying this story to you because I want to brag or show off. It's just because I want in this meeting to make something not possible possible for your brain. And so everything really can be possible when our brain has the right method and the right tools to do it. So there are so many things that I can teach you in this meeting, but we were talking with George earlier and I said, what's the most thing that people can use immediately after they hear you? And I just want to share with you that my speeches changed like a few months ago. We had a 1,500 people course in Italy, and we started with this topic. It usually was the last one, but I think it's the first one right now. And it's called cognitive styles. So cognitive styles are using the scientific word and words that maybe make no sense. Okay, let me explain to you what it means. Cognitive styles is just how our brain likes learning. And what we have to know is that the way we usually speak is the way we usually learn. So when someone is speaking a certain way, most likely their brain learns that way. So there are different cognitive styles, and people usually think about like auditory, kinesthetic, visual, all of those, but I'm not talking about those. I'm talking something even deeper in your brain that really counts when you're learning, understanding, communicating, connecting, achieving goals, reading books. It's basically the base of elaboration, the base of our intelligence uses to understand things. And also, I use this also so much in communication. So now, what are those? And I think you're going to use this in your life a lot because it really changed my life. Now, I will tell you what they are, and then I will tell you how using them can change your life. So people can be analytical or global, or they can be also visual and verbal. So there are many cognitive styles. I'm giving you the main ones. So analytical versus global, visual versus verbal. So it can be, for example, analytical visual, global verbal, analytical verbal, or analytical visual. Okay, these are different combinations. Okay, so let's understand what is an analytical person and how do they think and understand. So analytical people usually like having all the details under control in order to see the big picture. So an analytical person is the person that usually asks a lot of questions and wants to have all the details, okay, to start acting. Global people usually they like the big picture and then the details later. Okay, so if you give them too many details, they're going to be shut down immediately. So big picture, then the details later. Visual people are hands-on. Let's do it. Okay, give me the picture. As long as I see the picture, I can act and I can do things. Verbal people wants to know why. So the reason why they have to do something. So they are very logic. They want to know the connection between things so they can see what visual people sees. Are you all with me with this? So
I'm with you. I'm with you. I feel so seen right now. I love
very
this.
good.
Like, yes.
So now, yes, we have all four. Yes, they play differently in different situations, but our brain uses at the most two of those in general situations, like, for example, learning or when we are speaking on stage or when we are speaking to people. And now, let me tell you, being dyslexic in school, it was very challenging for me, learning, reading, passing tests sometimes. So sometimes I felt stupid because I couldn't understand what the teacher was teaching. And for years, I had this label, you're dyslexic, you're stupid, you can't understand things, and all of that. But then, after I realized what our brain really has as a tool to understand, you basically start having a relief, freedom from what you've been thinking for many, many years. And so I understood that I was global visual, and my teacher, for example, was analytical verbal. So now let's understand what happens when there is this difference. It's like someone speaking in Japanese teaching you math, and he's very excited, has so much energy. They really believe in the subject, in what they're doing, and all of that. But you speak Italian, or you speak English, and yes, in the beginning you're paying attention, but after a few minutes, you start thinking about what I want to eat. Is there something important that I need to do? And so your brain goes another thoughts, other tangents, I would say. And in that moment, you're losing focus. So now it's not that the professor was bad, or maybe I don't want to say that this professor was the best, okay? But if they're speaking the language that my brain doesn't understand, how can I then proceed, execute, or take tests, or use those piece of information? I can't. If we go to sales, for example, it's even worse. In business, it's even worse because let's say I'm in sales and I want someone else to understand how important is my product for them. But I'm not speaking the way they understand things. Now, how can I make a decision on something I cannot understand? In fact, the normal answer when we ask them the call to action, like, would you like to move forward? They say, well, I don't know. I have to think about. You say, what? I just told you everything you have to think about. And if you dare to ask them, what do you have to think about? They're going to say, I don't know. And it's true. They didn't understand. They don't know it. And so they're not going to follow through the product or whatever you want them to follow through. In my family, for example, in many other, let's say, parts of my life, I use this to make people understand me better and have them understand and have them feeling understood when they're speaking to me. So I have my mom that's really analytical and verbal, and when she speaks forever because she has all the details and the whys. She has to tell you those things. Okay, and so I'm global visual. You understand big picture, get to the experience. So what I ask her sometimes is, okay, mom, can you tell me in few words what is that you want to accomplish with this conversation? So, and then I want to listen to you so I understand better what you really want to tell me. And she says, is this and this. Awesome. So she told me now I can follow what she's saying because my brain knows what the goals are. Beautiful. So you can unblock people like asking just a few questions. But the most important person you have to unblock is yourself. If you are a global visual person and you want to learn something, I would rather read the, let's say, summary of what you're going to read, watching a trailer of something you're going to read. And there are so many techniques you can do that. And so many techniques is based on every single brain. So it's like phenomenal what you can find. And so if you read that summary, your brain knows if you're really interested or not. And so that way, you're going to have more intention when you're reading than just passively learning something. Okay? So if you're analytical and verbal, what I recommend for you to do is to understand the real goals you have in reading that book. So understanding what questions you want to answer by reading that book allows your brain to be more focused in what you're looking for, and so you can enjoy better the learning in that moment. So, by the way, there is no the best one as a cognitive styles. What you have is what you have, and you have to use it to the fullest. So what I'm going to say is one day I had a class with 300 people, and there were a few people asking, I wish I was global. How can I become global? Oh, I wish I was analytical. How can I become more analytical? I said, guys, you can't ask a fish to climb. You can't ask let's say, a monkey to dive into water forever. So you have to work with what you have, but you can achieve the same results just in a different way. So always in school, I felt I had to fit in what they told me to do. But what I really understood that learning is more an internal experience, where you have to understand what your brain really likes. And once you know it, you can really unlock a superpower that you never thought to have, or you never believed you have. And learning a language each week, guys, if I say this to people, they may not believe me. I did a TED talk about it, and I wrote a book about it. So it's a lot of work that I did after that. Because, for example, for languages, since no one ever learned a language that fast, it seems that it's not possible to do it. But it's actually possible to learn a language. Maybe I would say to you, maybe if you don't have like 10 hours per day, you have 1 hour and a half per day, you can do it in a month. But it's possible to do it in a month if you want to. So, cognitive styles. I would say George, that one thing that can really help people understand what cognitive science is, understanding what they are and using them strategically when you're speaking with someone. So what I would do is I will go to your wife and then let her speak. Most likely you're going to understand from your partner, spouse, whatever it is, that they may be opposite than you. And that's why when they're speaking, you may go blank for that reason. And so in that moment, you can tell them, oh, I know what you are. You're analytical and visual, right? So you like details and you like the experience and to tell me metaphors and all of that, correct? And they say, oh, yes, I feel so understood. Well, I'm different. I like all the logic part and like the big picture, okay? So next time when we talk, can you go to the big picture, tell me the whys, and then we'll listen to you. Guys, it's so much fun. And I will conclude by by telling you the story between me and my wife about this. So when we bought a house in, I mean, we bought different houses, but the last one we bought didn't have a washer and dryer. Okay, we went to Home Depot, and she said, "Can you go and choose the right one?" And I said, "Okay." I go there, and after 7 minutes, I was buying it. So she said, okay, no, don't buy it. I want to come there. She's analytical and verbal. After 2 hours and a half, we bought the same thing, but she wanted to have that experience with her cognitive styles. So this didn't resolve in an argument. It resolved in laughing about it because we're different. We are using in an empowering way our differences. So
I love that. So I'm going to summarize because I heard this, and the two big parts that I heard is number one, the most important thing is to understand your cognitive style first. But then number two is to start to notice and practice what other people's are so that you can create solid ground of communication, right? And so how do you recommend that somebody finds their cognitive style? Like, what are the easiest ways for somebody to identify like what that is?
yes, besides the fact that we have tests to do that, you can identify yourself by asking yourself, do I really like more details when I am reading something? Or for me, it's already enough the first thing I read, what I'm reading. So it depends really, you have to see your behavior. Now your learning becomes more internal than someone telling you what you are. And so
Mm-hmm.
verbal versus visual. So do I like more the logic or why this works or just want that to work and use it? Okay. So that will make you understand if you're either verbal, so you like to understand why it works, why that goes that way, and all of that, all the logic behind it. If you're more visual, you're like more the experience. So just let it work. I don't care how it works. Let me tell me just a few things on how this works better on the best way, but let me do it. Okay. So this is a more a visual person. Now, by asking you those questions internally, you understand what you really prefers. And yes, there are tests also to do that. But what I would say to you, I like more the experience in life. So life is the best course you can ever take. And and for me, I got the I got my cognitive sciences from tests, but most of all, understanding them through experiences. So and most of all, when you have someone in front of you, if you want to understand what they are, you have to be a good listener. So listen how they put the pieces together. See how fast they get to the big picture. And so that makes you understand, okay, they prefer me to talk this way versus my way. You follow me?
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, and is this why you and I can talk for hours on end because we're both global visual or global visual, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
global visual, correct. Yes.
Yeah, because I'll tell everybody we had dinner one night and I think we both forgot to eat because it was just like 3 hours of back and forth because I was like, I feel so seen right now. I could just talk to you all day. Everything makes sense. And so I love that.
Yes, man. We what we experienced was okay. We have same brain, and so now we opened like multiple topics without closing them, and then we closed all of them at the end because I said, "Hey, man, we opened up to all many, it's too many things." I know we're both global. If I didn't know those techniques, I would let them open. But let's close them because we will feel more
Yep.
satisfied by closing things. It was
Yep.
phenomenal, George. I loved it.
Oh, me too. Now, I have a question about the application of this because, like, you said something so powerful earlier too, like even on the sales call, right? Like, there's all these times where we'll end up getting frustrated. Like, I gave it my all, I said everything, like, why do they not get it? I gave them everything, right? And it really just because it's like a foreign language, if their brain doesn't operate like that. So for somebody like you and I that recognize, like, somebody listening to this who might be global visual, but then they're talking to an analytical verbal, like, how do you take that from how we communicate
Oh,
and then
wow.
put it in a way that we can try to find that common ground?
I mean, it takes like practice, of course.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you a tip on that because usually when I train for companies or train sales teams and all of that, it takes some days to understand it. But
Mm-hmm.
first of all, you have to be a good listener. Okay, understanding what the person is in front of you. The most important thing is to understand if they are global or analytical. And so it's easy in that case because you're gonna see if they use so many details to describe what they want from you, or if they just get to the
Yep.
point, I want this, and that's it. So from there, let them talk at least for 8 minutes if you're a beginner. So your brain can get used on how they put piece of information together, and they feel more comfortable in listening to you and being heard. And so now the next thing is, okay, now that you understood they are analytical and verbal, you're global visual, you have to make a lot of effort to use as many details as possible to describe the big picture that you have. So that way, make sure you don't make them feel overwhelmed because analytical verbal people, even if they want the details, they don't want to feel overwhelmed by the details. Because, for example, if you want to talk about weaknesses in both parts, global people, they usually do something, but they are checking, they did it, they have to go back to check some details they forgot to consider the first time. Analytical people, for example, they get analysis paralysis. They get too much stuck in too many details. And so now what happens is they never start because there is something even, let's say, something better, something more to know to start in a perfect way. So the best way is to find a common ground. And the common ground is give them no more than three details at the same time when you're talking. And so that way you can check three, check three, check three, check three. And that way they're listening to you carefully. Also in this presentation, I'm using all four to engage with all of you guys. So I'm using examples, I'm using whys, I'm using global picture, I'm using all of that. Of course, it's been years I'm using this, and so it comes natural to me. In the beginning, you have to practice. So the most important thing you have to do is practicing, understanding the theory, and then practice, practice, practice. So hope I answered the question.
You did. You did.
I would say to
You
you
did.
that last team sales that I trained went from, let's say, I would say 15-20% of closing to almost 97% of closing. So it was like a huge number they had. And of course, depends if they were one-to-one or in a group. In a one-to-one was higher than the group, but it was phenomenal because people felt, oh, now I understand. And they will tell you, I'm not interested because I understood. So it's the time to ask more referrals, or because they understood it, so they can propose to others. Or you can say, or they can say, oh yes, for the first time, I understood this financial thing, or this this history things, or this product that I always has been showing to me, but I never understood it from the other.
Got it. I love that. And then, and this might be a silly question, but like, you just said something where you're like, and even talking to you, I'm using all four styles so that basically everybody collects enough details and there's enough to be here. So like, for people that are making content or recording podcasts, do you think that that's a good muscle to practice, is number one, to start listening and become aware of like global, analytical, verbal, visual, and including those parts and pieces when they're facilitating, when they're speaking, when they're creating content?
Yes, absolutely. So one of the things that I found in my experience with clients that were creating content for marketing or teaching, I asked them to use this structure mostly when they are teaching, because people, when they're teaching, their brain goes back to school and they start thinking, I'm gonna get everything. I'm gonna take notes like crazy, or I don't take notes because if I don't listen, I don't understand. All of that. You can avoid all those blocks by telling them that you structure this for people to understand it, and they will see it. They will say, "Oh my gosh, I could listen to you. I could retain everything even if I didn't take notes." I could take notes easily because you structured this in a way that I don't know. I never had this experience. I get that all the time when I'm speaking and teaching something. And when they're creating content, in 30 seconds can be really hard to put all four.
Mm-hmm.
It's possible. I did it. Um, I would say for marketing, sometimes that you want to hit different in different weeks or the same
Mm-hmm.
content taught in a different way. So that can be an idea that we practiced and we did. But yes, absolutely. It's
I
best to
love
use
that.
of that if they are learning.
Yeah. Since everybody's annoyed with me on my own podcast, but there's two scripture statements that I have that I say all the time. Is number one is that leadership saying the same thing as many times as required till the last person gets it. But that doesn't mean you always say it the same way.
Perfect.
You take the same message or the same present in the box and you change the wrapping paper. You can do it globally. You can do it analytically,
Yes.
visual, verbal, and then understanding that our message is only as effective as somebody's ability to hear it, understand it, and implement it, which these same four styles, when we just have an awareness of this, maybe you only have 60 seconds and you're not going to hit all of them, but can you record one version of that and then record a separate version and post them a couple days in between? That is where you start to communicate with people so they all feel seen, heard, and understood. And really what you're talking about is safe enough to be like, God, I get this. I can retain this. I can receive this. So it's a really good thought process just to even have in your brain when you are thinking about how people are receiving your message.
Yes, absolutely. Something funny that it came to my mind when you were talking was I just opened my YouTube channel and I recorded the same topic. I called it in a different way, okay? But it's the same topic, 2 minutes each, and people tell me sometimes, "Oh, I understood that in that video. I understood the idea in the other video," and I said, "Well, it's done for that reason." And they understood, of course, that it was the same topic, but it's said in a different way. It sounds totally different. So it's fun to see that because nowadays the fastest you can consume piece of information, retain them, the better you will be in the market and in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Because now you're going to use some knowledge. Knowledge brings innovation, brings evolution when you apply it. But if you can't understand it, you can't apply it, you can't retain it. So how are you going to evolve? How are you going to grow? You can't. So
Yeah.
it's very important to know those things. They are not taught in school, unfortunately, but it's really the base. Understanding yourself is the base of everything.
Yeah, I love that. So those are the cognitive styles. And then just so everybody knows, I was in a room with Cosimo and I got to consume all of this for like multiple hours and I had pages of notes. And I'm like, me too. Yes, that. Boom. Hey. But another thing that you taught was it the reasoning cognitive styles? Is that what they were called?
Yes, reasoning cognitive styles. Yes.
Can you just keep breaking our brains over here since we're all going
Ooh.
to re-listen to this podcast multiple times?
Wow. Okay. So heads up for everyone, most of all global people. This is not going to be a pleasant trip because if I show you maybe a slide, it would be better for you to read and get the point. But you're listening right now. So
If you send me the slides, Cosmo, I'll put them in the show notes. If you send me the
yeah,
slide,
I
that way
will.
they can see it.
So then
Okay.
don't try this at home, okay? So let me follow. Now let's follow the recipe. Reasoning cognitive styles. As I told you earlier, we have processing more cognitive styles, which are analytical and global. Memory cognitive styles, which are visual and verbal. These are the main ones, and it's good to know them so you can use them anytime. We have reasoning cognitive styles, which they get into when we are executing something. So let's say we are doing something, creating something, decision making, when we're making a decision, or problem solving. Okay? So execution, decision making, problem solving. What are the execution cognitive styles? So they're called systematic and intuitive. Okay? Then we have decision making, impulsive or reflective. And then we have problem solving, which is the convergent and divergent. Okay? Now let's understand what I mean with those. So for example, according to, let's say, systematic and intuitive, which are execution, cognitive styles. So it's how you execute things. Let's say IKEA. Have you ever done IKEA with your wife or with your spouse or with your friend, with your brother, whatever it is? There will be always fight with them because, okay, this is a true story. Since we moved, I like assembling, let's say, some furniture. and helping other people assembling this. So we moved here. We fortunately we had people to assemble some of them, but I assembled myself like the bedroom for my daughter, and and my wife, which is very systematic, she likes having systems, so like step by step processes. Okay, I'm intuitive, and for me, there is a picture. I'm gonna get there by doing it. Okay, so she said, "Okay, okay, okay. What are you doing here? Why did you open this? Where did you put this? Where did you put that?" So I said, "Okay, systematic girl. I would say to you, can I finish this my way, and then the rest you can do it your way?" She said, "Oh yes, I forgot about that. Yeah, no worries, you do it." Most of the times, what happens is you get in an argument, but what really is the how your brain works in that way. And usually, intuitive people always have more than the spare hardware the
Uh-huh.
IKEA gives you. And you say, "Oh no, they must be wrong." That's what your brain would think as an intuitive
Yep.
person. A systematic person seeing you going that fast, already building something, may think they are stupid, they are too slow, whatever it is. But it's not true. You can be as fast as they are by having step by step processes. So she did some furniture, I did some furniture, and I would say to you, since I always want my wife to win, so happy wife, happy life. I actually, I actually did it the way she wanted to do, and anyways, it's very tedious for an intuitive person to follow step by step processes. Already taking the instructions in their hands just make them really. Do you really need instructions for this thing? I don't want to have instructions. I know what I want to build. I know already. I did this many times and all of that. Okay, so intuitive systematic in a business perspective, which is more useful. When you have employees, they or let's talk about like as we said earlier, sales. When when you want them to make sales, and you tell them you have to make sales, you have to sell products. That's a very intuitive way to tell them to sell. An intuitive person is going to find a way to sell it, and a systematic person will be blocked. Will feel like this is not my right job. I don't like this guy that teaches me. I don't like the product. They're going to come up with so many excuses why they can't achieve their results just because we didn't provide them the right way their brain needs to execute what they have to execute. So another example I was with my DAs. So I hired different assistants in different areas of the world, and I I told them, okay, I need some assistance with this, and this. Oh my gosh, this is gonna take us months to understand it. Okay, so I created for you this test. Take it. It took a test. I understood what their brain likes, and I said, okay, systematic people follow these instructions. Intuitive people follow these instructions. After 10 hours, they were able to run my projects and I didn't need to wait months. And they said, it's my first time working with someone totally new, getting this so well. So, guys, it's really for you, it's really for them, it's really to create in life instead of fighting. That's to
Hmm.
summarize everything. So, systematic versus intuitive.
And those ones were execution strategies, right?
Exactly. Executed,
Okay,
execution,
cool.
yes. So then, as I said earlier, we have decision-making cognitive styles, which is the impulsive versus reflective. Okay, guys, I need to explain to you what it means impulsive. Someone that's impulsive is someone that takes decisions super fast, okay, without even thinking, okay? Reflective people are people that needs to take a lot of time to make a decision, okay? Both of them can be unblocked and both of them can achieve the same result. And both of them have weaknesses. Impulsive people may regret their decisions. Reflective people are very precise in what they're going to choose. Okay, so but they took maybe a lot of time to get there, and other people maybe made the decision faster and got results faster. Okay, that's what's going on when you see real life application of those things. So now, I would say to you, you can. This is an example with me and my wife. We are so opposite in this. It was COVID. I wanted to travel. Okay. Anyways, no matter what it was, I wanted to travel, and I wanted to get to Florida. I was in Colorado, And I said to my wife, hey, I got a good ticket. The pricing of the airfares are very low. Let's go. Okay. So she said, where do I go? Did you consider this, and this, and this? In my brain of a man, I said, and this. So now, in that moment, my excitement became frustration. I didn't want to go anymore. I said, come on, can you just say yes for one time? Okay, she must be reflective. Okay, let me see how can I structure this sale in a better way. And so I did it, and she said, "What's the price then for?" I went through like kids, luggage, layover, non-stop, and whatever. I gave you all the options, and she said, "Oh my gosh, I love this. When do we go?" Wow, awesome! So we went to Florida during Christmas. It's a matter of understanding what's in front of you that will make a difference. Again, making them connecting with you instead of fighting. In a business perspective, you have no idea how many problems you can solve by understanding someone else's brain and how fast you can get a result with someone when you understand their brain. So let's go ahead. Next one was Convergent versus Divergent. And if you are George's clients, he talks about this divergent and creativity part that your brain has. So let's understand our brain can be convergent and divergent. Those two cognitive styles are very different, as I said, opposite. And so convergent is a person that will find a creative solution after they went through some inspiration. Means like they have to have many pieces of information to see the solution. Okay? So they can ask other people their experiences, if they ever faced this problem before, or like they're going to research on YouTube something. They're going to find pieces of information just to have an idea what to start with. Okay? And after the idea, they're going to have another idea, so they're going to research another idea, going to research another idea, and going to research. Okay? Divergent people, they just come up with a brainstorming so many solutions. Okay? They may not fit the real problem, or they may not be doable in the immediate, but they come up with many solutions. So we can say that divergent people can be more flexible in the solutions they are giving. Convergent people will find a solution that will work. Now, in a work environment, business environment, family environment, sometimes just one solution cannot be enough. And so that's why you want to have both and use both. And convergent people can be and can use their divergent part of their brain, just doing some exercises. And divergent people can be more convergent when it's needed. So team can work really well. Man, I had so many stories that I can tell you in companies because I use this more in the companies, of course, and in my company with my sales team. So one day I had a new product that I wanted to sell. This is in my company, so we'll talk about my company. It's easier. And I asked a divergent guy, can you give me some ideas on how you would sell this product? Okay. So the divergent guy gave me the ideas. I created a systematic and intuitive way to do this. And then I went to the convergent person and I said, what do you think about selling the product this way? Would other ideas come to your brain about the system and the process we should do this? At the end of the day, after a few hours, we had the product on market. We sold about 100 pieces in 3 days, and we were super happy. So this is how you use and leverage your team when you know someone has that skill and use the other skill the other person has. So
yeah,
awesome.
Okay, so what is the label for the convergent divergent one? Were they problem solving? Is that the label that you give them?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, so I just want to repeat this because I enjoyed all of that, and I'm literally you. I remember we laughed about this. We are identical in every one of these buckets. And so systematic and intuitive are the execution strategies. Convergent divergent are the problem solving, and then impulsive reflective are the decision making strategies.
Yes, exactly.
And then what are you called? The global analytical?
They are
What's
called
that
processing
label?
cognitive styles. It's how you process pieces of information so you understand them.
And then what is the visual verbal? Is that still processing cognitive styles?
They're called memory. So how much you retain after you processed.
Got it. This is like my brain over here, and like even hearing you talk about these like multiple times and like even knowing some of these, like my brain is just spinning right now with like all the possibilities for like people listening, from team to sales to conversations to content to DMs. Like there's so much applicable knowledge, and it goes back to what you said earlier where like really taking the time to know yourself and understanding which ones of these buckets that we fall into innately for us will then allow us to understand and get better at listening and flexing that muscle so we can hear where other people are. Because, you know, even from like an implementable standpoint, these are really, really easy because, like, fair to say, and this is where my brain does this, but you know my brain already, so
Yes.
this is hilarious that I'm even talking about this. But I'm like, if I can tell that somebody's like global visual or global verbal, then really when sharing information, the other three buckets are really easy to just know when they ask questions. Like, are they asking systematic questions? Are they asking gut
Yes.
questions, right? Are they going to Convergent, Divergent, which is like, I'm going to do A, B, C, D, or they're like, I'm going to do Z, B, A, X, right? And then
Yes.
Impulsive, Reflective, where they're like, I just want to do it right now, or I'm going to have to think about it. But really, when you really understand these and you practice them and flex them, you can really current state somebody's brain and know exactly how to communicate in a way that they feel seen, heard, or empowered, regardless of what your offer is or your product is or your content is, just by being aware of where they're communicating and how they're communicating.
Yes. And the goal the way with communication is not just sales, is to empower that person with the product we have. Because we know our product works. We know that the relationship is going to be fantastic to have. We know that we love the person in front of us. We know that we want to have a team that can follow what we say, and together we can achieve even more and feel very satisfied. We know that we want to avoid frustration, overwhelming, feeling like not good at doing something. We want to avoid all those feelings just by understanding what our superpowers are and how to use them. You have no idea how people look at each other after one day we're talking about this and they are using it and they said, you know that I hated you for all those years, and now and now I understand that you have a superpower that I can use, which is exactly what I needed right now in my life. And I said, awareness brings evolution for people. So
Mm.
we need to have that in our life. And if we don't seek evolution, then what we're living for. So things in life that don't grow usually are dead. So you really want to be dead. But I think if you're in nature and if you're alive, it means that you serve. Okay, so you have a role in this world. Otherwise, nature would have already deleted you from this life. So learning, awareness, evolution is very important. And you have no idea how this was a relief for me. Because being dyslexic and thinking, I can't understand this, so I have to go home and I have to read this. It's going to take me hours to understand it. Uh, it was just learned beliefs that the system gave on myself when I don't want to talk about dyslexia right now because it's a long topic. And I don't specialize in dyslexic people because I already have so much business about businesses. But when someone comes in is dyslexic, what they have to understand that they call it learning disability, but in fact, in reality, is a different way your brain processes pieces of information. You can be ADHD, dyslexic, can have any problems in your brain that you think and you label as a problem. Most likely, if you're able to transform the problem, you're going to find after the problem a pro power. Okay, so you are going to use that as a power in your life, a superpower in your life. And so that's why I was able to read 44 books in 12 days. I was able to finish a year with 83 books read and retaining all of them. I was able to go. Now I was on a trip, as I said, I went to Italy, and the guy next to me, I was reading the book. In 1 hour, I finished, and he said, what book was that?" And I said the book, and and he said, "But did you finish it? Because I noticed that you were at the end." And so, well, actually, I started this like 1 hour ago. He said, I saw that. How could you finish that in an hour or 2 hours, whatever it was? I said, because there are techniques. You make people feel free. That's achievable. And when someone does it, you allow other people to believe it's possible to do it. So
Mm.
believe it's possible to do this with yourself. Let's start understanding ourselves. When we start understanding ourselves and we use our superpowers, we allow the others to do the same. So this is what I would add on what you already just said.
Yeah, and I'm just going to take this time now. I'm sure everybody can understand why I'm so grateful to have him in the contacts of my phone and why we can text, but I also am going to recommend that you follow him on Instagram like right now. Not like when the show's over, you're already on your phone. So just open Instagram right now, and his Instagram handle is mindmap.coach, right? Mindmap.coach on
Yeah,
Instagram,
that's correct.
because he's getting ready to drop some stuff out there. But like, genuinely, I am a sponge every time that you speak. And even hearing this multiple times, I get it at such a deeper level now with the cognitive styles and how to use them and how to implement them. And yeah, so anything you want to share about your Instagram, we'll go on to something else. But like, you can just keep talking. I'll
Yeah.
just listen. I'm your biggest fanboy over here.
Now, I would say, guys, if you follow me on Instagram, I would like to have your messages to say, Cosimo, I use the global part. Cosimo, I use this. I like answering those texts. And there are some people that ask me questions. My Instagram, I want heads up, I was really bad to use my social media so far because, since social media started, I am the get to know people in person. Okay.
Yeah.
I am the person of people, and people are my life. So I went on stages and connect with everyone, and that's what I usually do. Then I noticed that social media can impact even more people. So in 2 weeks from now, we're going to start a huge, huge way to put content on it. From taking from my speeches, taking from real content that I'm creating right now. It's going to be fantastic. But most of all, if you're listening to this podcast, thanks to George, just message me and say, oh my gosh, I used the systematic with my wife and I let her win. Or you can say whatever you want, but I would like to know how I'm using this knowledge because, as I said earlier, learning without practice is nothing. So, practice. That's what I would say.
Yeah, and it just speaks to it too. And like, because you have so much knowledge in the brain, and I just want to let you unpack this for a minute, right? Like, I can geek out and talk about how neural pathways are done and neuroplasticity, but like,
Yeah.
this concept of practice has come up so many times. And even in hearing you do this and how you do it, right? This is a muscle. Like, I watched, by the way, I watched him in a room just quiz people, and he's like, okay, everybody give me a word and give me a number, and he reads it for 60 seconds. Then he turns around with his back and he's like, anybody call it a word and number, and I'll tell you the associated one. And then he even pretends to mess up just to prove a point to people. But like, you can do this with like 200 names or what's the most you've ever done or memorized, you shared?
Oh my gosh, it was an audience of the first speech I did was in college, and I was a college student. I was 20 years old, and I had 450 people names memorized. So,
Yeah.
and that was the most I did. Then other speeches I did the first row of 200, but I didn't do more than that. I mean, names it's very impactful, and just like let you know, these are memory techniques that everyone can learn. The cognitive
Yeah.
styles are even deeper than that. But once you know your cognitive styles, you also are going to know what techniques, memory techniques, your brain likes. Because not all memory techniques would work with your brain. So there are
Yeah.
many, many in the world that you can find. And once you know what works with your brain, then you start understanding, oh, wow, that works with the guy in the video, but it doesn't work with me. Why? Because I'm stupid? No, because that technique goes with this learning model. So all the cognitive styles and things we have in our brain, it's called learning model. So the model of your brain. Now, if your model doesn't fit the thing, that's it. You have to find what fits with your brain. And so that's why from there we start customizing methods on people's brain. It's phenomenal, man. I will never get tired of seeing people's eyes changing because of the breakthroughs they have thanks to techniques. And so yes, that's the most I did. I mean, books I read, being dyslexic, it's phenomenal, of course. and to read books.
And the
Yeah,
reason I ask is because, like, you know me personally, and like I had traumatic brain injuries, but I
yeah.
also feel like people fall into this trap of like, well, I can't make my brain better, or like it's just this way, and it's not. Like it's a muscle, right? And you can use it. So can you just preach on that for a minute, because they're not going to listen to me, but they'll listen to you.
Awesome. So let me tell you, whatever you think about you're able to do or you're not able to do is because someone told you or you had an experience about it. After you had the experience, your brain start believing in that experience, and so you create what I call a belief. Okay, I just summarized an entire neurological path process in a few sentences because it's global. Let's go more into analytical stuff. So let's say you are a kid, and usually kids, they are sponges, right? So we can say everyone, at least between 0 and 4, are sponges. So everyone is able to learn. As a kid can learn multiple languages. My daughter is learning fluent Italian and she speaks fluent Italian and fluent English. She can switch like crazy, even better than me. She corrects me on conjugations in Italian better than I do. So it's phenomenal. She's learning also Spanish. So they are sponges. So we can all say that everyone is able to learn as fast as we want. But then think about how we were doing this. We were asking whys, we had the experiences, and so we had this wonderful energy. Think about a kid. How are they? They always have energy, they're unstoppable, they have to do things. And when you say to a kid, you can't do that, what the kids asks you is no. Tells you actually is no. For example, mom, can I have an ice cream? No. Come on, I want an ice cream. So they are very tenacious. After like many times they are saying I want an ice cream, you're gonna say, okay, 10,000 scoops just to shut up. Okay? Now they achieve the results, and so in their brain, all of this is contributing to a virtuous cycle of experiencing life and so learning. Okay? Now then we go to school and we start the trauma. They say, sit, look at me, stare at me, shut up. You can't ask questions. This is a stupid question, and whatever it is. So you start listening to those things, and you have no filters to understand that it's just the teacher's perception. It's not your reality. But sooner or later, will become your reality. And so you start thinking, oh, a teacher, I want to pass this test. How do I do it? And they say, oh, easy. You have to read over and over and over and over, right? Over and over. Do outlines, summarize, repeat, repeat, repeat. Guys, I don't know you, but I don't think I ever had fun in repeating something over and over. Just thinking about my wife when she repeats the things 2 or 3 times, I'm already bored about it. So guess if I'm reading a book multiple times, what happens to me? Okay. So now the thing is, we go to the test, we put effort, and when we were kids, we were putting effort and we achieve the result. Maybe in the moment there is no result, and so you start thinking, oh, see, maybe I'm not good at doing this. Maybe it's not my subject. I'm not able to learn this. So you start thinking, maybe I'm not good at, maybe. And you go over and over and over on failures and results and failures and success, just randomly, because repeating over and over, it's not a method. And if you think about it, it's like lottery. You may remember that, or you may not remember that. You just hope. Well, learning is not hoping, okay? Learning is either you know it or you don't know it. Period. And you know it before you go to the test. So now what happens is you put a lot of effort for some anxiety, overwhelming, whatever feeling you had in that moment, you go blank. You put a lot of effort, you achieve that, and you achieve the negative result, and you start believing that you're not good at math, you're not good at reading, you can't read faster, you can't retain, you can't learn a language, you can't blah. When you put I can't do whatever, I can't blank, that's a belief that you created because of an experience based on what? Of non-method. So if you understand this, you are believing you're not able to retain because you never experienced what it means retention because you don't have a method. How can you say you can't retain? It's like saying, I tried to change a flat tire of a car without tools. Okay, now, you tried years to change a flat tire of a car. but you were not able to change it. You start driving this car slower than others. At some point, you forget that the problem is not the car, it's you. And so you start believing that it's you the problem. Well, guys, I will tell you something. The problem is that no one gave you the tools. No one told you, I'm sure, about the cognitive styles, just to take one thing. No one told you how your brain likes learning, likes retaining, likes reading, because there is a way your brain likes it. So then you can't condemn yourself to perpetual, I can't retain, I can't read, I can't retain. So, or I can't do math, I can't organize, I'm always all over the place. All those things you're saying to yourself are based on a non-method. Basically, you're saying to the guy that doesn't have tools, well, it's true, you're stupid. That's why you can change the flat tire. What? If you find someone saying to someone, I don't have tools, so because you're stupid, you don't have the tools and you can't change the flat tire, the guy in front of you would say, look at you. So, I mean, what are you talking about? Okay. It's nonsense thinking about the flat tire, but why does it make sense when we talk about learning?
Yeah.
It doesn't need to make
I
sense.
love. Yeah, I love that. I love that whole breakdown of that. So, because we got to start landing this plane, I'm going to ask you a question I really haven't asked anybody before, and it's a relatively simple one. So, if you could imagine that everybody listening to this was standing in front of you, like what advice or what steps would you have them take, or what would you have them go pursue to start implementing these, using these, getting a better understanding of their brain? Like if they were standing in front of you, like what would you guide everybody to do besides follow you on Instagram and DM you? It's mindmap.coach, by the way, and I want you to DM him. Tell him I use these. My wife is this. I put this label on here. We communicated here. I understand my team better. But like, what would you recommend for people to like really start learning and start flexing their brain and utilizing this stuff?
So, in this long experience I had with people, um, I put everything on love. What do I mean with that? You need to love yourself so much to start understanding that you want to improve. It requires love for learning, love for learning means that you didn't give up. That you give yourself another opportunity to understand that your brain needs tools. That it's not over because there is something that you must learn more about. It requires love to forgive the fact that you may listen to this podcast right now. You should have listened to this many years ago. It requires love to think, I didn't listen to my wife or my wife or the spouse, the person in front of me, my kids, whoever is in front of you, not because you are not a good listener, but because you didn't have tools to listen to them in a better way. It requires love and requires to love yourself enough to admit they are not perfect, but you always want to find perfect effort in implementing something that will make your life better. So when I found the company that was doing just memory techniques, so it was not like this. It was no genius in that moment. I found it just because I wanted to memorize more. I was looking through books. I was going through different mm, different like videos and things. I found them and I said, if I tell them that I'm dyslexic, they're gonna judge me like they did in school. I was projecting their reality or what they would have thought about myself, thinking about myself, they told me in the past. And there are two kinds of people. One that says, "Oh yes, you're right. Let me not do. Let me just do nothing about it." Okay, I don't want to be judged. I don't want to discuss this. Let me do nothing about it, and I will never have met those people. But in that moment when I found this opportunity, I said, "You know what? It's over. I'm done with this." It took just a decision to cut with the past self, with the excuses I had that I wasn't good enough, that now I couldn't play anymore the card of I'm stupid, I'm dyslexic. You need to be loving yourself more than the card you have in your hands. And so that's what I would say is the most important step you have to do.
I love
So
that.
see your
You need to
cards.
be loving yourself more than the cards that you have in your hand. That is a good one.
Yeah. Because you're gonna see your cards. I'm too slow. I'm stupid. I can't read. I have a brain injury. I I'm dyslexic, I'm ADHD. What cards are you playing is defining you right now. You really want to still play with these cards, or just loving yourself enough more than the cards, and play with the card that you really want to, and start seeing what the blue pill will bring you to.
Yeah.
So
Oh
that's my
man, I appreciate you so much, dude. This was just like a masterclass. And even hearing this multiple times and quote unquote knowing some of this, it's just so powerful to like keep practicing and keep hearing. And so, for everybody listening, I will say this, like this has been one of the most instrumental things, hearing Cosimo present to this and then becoming his friend. But this isn't one of those episodes where you're like, oh, on to the next. Like I would really take the time to go through this and take these practical pieces of advice and put them into practice for yourself. Understand your style, like your cognitive processing style. Understand if you're convergent, divergent, intuitive, or systematic, and utilize these pieces to bring that awareness to love yourself regardless of the cards in your hand, because that thirst for knowledge is what brings life and allows you to improve, because you can relearn all of this. But this is also one of those episodes that I would say anybody that you work with, anybody who you communicate with, it would be powerful to share it with them as well, so that they had the same frame and the same understanding, because you guys will be able to communicate deeper and support each other. Like, so you and your teams, you and your spouse, you and your friends, this would be one of the ones where you're like, no, 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 I listened to this, I want you to listen to this, but here's the challenge. Tell them to listen to it in their cognitive styles. So make sure you deliver it in a way that they're like, yeah, oh, I want to listen to that now. I understand the why, or thanks for the big picture, or those pieces, because this knowledge is really, really powerful on removing friction in your relationships, friction in your friendships, so that you can get to really at the core of this, which is effective communication, so that people feel heard, seen, supported. And so that's task number one. Task number two is slide into Cosmo's DMs. Like, you can see how infectious this beautiful, beautiful man is. And don't worry, he will Italian you off. It's the most beautiful accent ever. And then when we all go to Italy with Cosimo, we're going to eat all the family dinners and gain a plethora of weight, family style. And I'm excited to do that with him in one day. And so, just as a reminder, we'll have all of this in the show notes as well. But his Instagram is mindmap.coach. And so by the time you hear this show, he'll be back on Instagram dropping his clips and all these different things. And I know him personally. It means the world to him when you tell him that, like, hey, I did this, or hey, this worked, or boom, because you can tell he really cares about people learning. So, brother, I just want to thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for sharing your time with us today. Thank you for just being a bright light in the world, and like bringing so much vitality and energy and like passion to this, and like making learning fun again and cool again, and both at like an internal sense, but also in business and also in life and in communication and relationships. Like, it is an absolute honor to have you, man. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. Actually, I want to thank you for seeing this through me. It takes one to know one, I always say. And I really have in my heart all the conversation we had that night was still like, I think almost midnight, and were still talking.
It
Even if
was.
we had a training the day after, we said, "Okay, I want to stay here. What do you think?" "Oh man, I'm good." He said, "Awesome."
Yep.
So then let's talk. And honestly, the way you take care of your clients, the way you go to those meetings and empower other people and say, "Oh, I'm going to use this with my clients because I really believe it's going to change them." So you're always thinking about how to give back. That's what I saw from you, George. I really believe it's going to be phenomenal. Phenomenal, like what you learned from either this podcast, the meetings that you had, and I can't wait to listen to other podcasts that you're going to have. You are really the man of people. And
Thank you,
man,
brother.
I can't wait. I really can't wait to do another podcast with you or seeing you again.
Oh, what, dude, there's a lot of my mental agenda that I've already like checked off on the list. I'm like, there will be many, many opportunities for us. We will see each other again. You'll be at one of my events. We'll podcast again. We'll hang out. We'll do all of it, man. You're just a, yeah, I would reflect back to you the same thing. I feel the same thing from you, and it's why I love you at such a deep level, and I just appreciate you as a human being. And so thank you for seeing me, and thank you for taking the time to acknowledge me. Like, it means the world to me.
Oh yeah, everyone needs to know how amazing you are, but I don't need to tell them; they just see it. So
Thank
perceive
you,
it and
brother.
feel it.
Thank you,
Thank you,
brother.
George.
And don't worry, everybody. I will have Cosimo back on the show, and he will break our brains some more. I promise. And so I'm going to leave it with what we left it with, and I'm going to give you the agency to go take these things into practice. And so, really, really give this one credence because it is life changing work, it is life changing material, and the man who teaches it is a life changing man. And so, please use this, please apply this. And so, either way, this is where we wrap the show. So, we will either see you in the next episode or you will hear me in your earballs. But either way, we're out.